guys, so in today's video we're going to be talking all about transferring universities. Now this has been a highly requested video and I always get comments asking me to do it or having questions about my transfer process, so I'm sorry I haven't gotten it up until now. I have been so busy with my internship. I actually got up early to film this video before I left for work because I start late on Wednesdays, so I got up early so I could film this video for you guys, so I'm really sorry it's taken so long. If you're interested in my initial college application process, like right out of high school, then go ahead and click the link on the screen as well as in the down bar below because I did a whole video talking about that a while back, so go check that out. And then we can fast forward about a year, and I had just finished my freshman year of college and I was just really not excited. By the end of freshman year, I kind of had a little epiphany that I just really wasn't happy where I was, and life's too short to be unhappy, especially if you can change it. And before I get too far into this, I want to just give you a little bit of background about why I decided I wasn't happy at my old school, just so you know what I was going through. So basically when I decided I wanted to go to my old school out of high school, which was in DC, I thought I wanted to study political science and international politics and then become a journalist. And then I changed my mind and I decided I wanted to do business. And when I started taking business classes there, I was already pretty sure I wanted to transfer, but just the business program itself didn't impress me, and having companies that I wanted to work at not even recruit on my campus, because in business a lot of companies will send recruiters to specific universities that are called target schools, and they will come and actually recruit students especially from that campus, and it makes it a lot easier to get an interview and it makes the whole process a lot more streamlined. So I really wanted to find that school that was going to have those opportunities that I was looking for. And that's kind of a whole nother video in itself, a whole internship application, job application process. I'll talk about that later. I do have an internship this summer. I know I've gotten questions about that, so keep on the lookout. And this is by no means to say bad things about my old university. It just didn't fit with who I am or who I wanted to be. So that was the initial thing that kind of drove me, was just realizing that I didn't fit in and I didn't feel like it was the right fit for me, and then just kind of looking at it from a very logical standpoint of this is where I want to be in my career and this is going to be the best way to get to it. So that's kind of a long way of saying that it just wasn't the right fit for me. And it's, again, by no means, I know I've said where I went to school, but it's by no means to bash that. It's by no means to say bad things about that school if you're going there. It is a great school in many respects. It just wasn't right for me. And I think everybody has to make that decision for themselves, whether or not they're happy where they are, whether or not they feel like they fit in and it's the best place for them to be. And at the end of the day, I didn't feel like it was for me. I'm not you. You are you. I am me. So now let's get into my tips for transferring, because that's what you guys were asking about a lot, and I'm assuming that's because some of you guys are considering transferring, and if so, boy do I have a lot of information to share with you. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning and we'll just go kind of chronologically through the whole process, so hopefully I don't forget anything because I didn't write it down, and that's never good. First step, decide what schools you're going to apply for. I did this a lot like I did my initial college search, just looking at a bunch of universities and weighing their pros and cons and then deciding whether or not it was somewhere I was interested in applying to, except that I didn't visit any schools until I got into them, and before I visited a bunch of schools before I even applied. But I think that's because I had a better idea of what I wanted. I felt like I knew a lot more about universities in general, and I think it was just an easier process overall because I knew exactly what I wanted in a school, so it wasn't so overwhelming. So pick your schools, then figure out the application dates and what the application is like. I tried to stay with primarily Common App compatible schools because it made my life a lot easier, and unfortunately, unlike being a high school senior, people don't expect college freshmen or sophomores to be applying to schools, so you have to juggle applying and doing your applications with your schoolwork. I tried to get a bunch of them done over my winter break. That didn't happen, so I ended up doing a lot of them over my spring break and while I was in school. But the biggest thing is just trying to pick a manageable number. I applied to 13. That was not so manageable. I spent a lot of my time doing this, but I don't regret it at all. I really wanted to cover my bases. So once you've picked your schools, then it's time to sit down and get really organized. And I never did this, and it totally bit me in the butt later on. And that's very unlike me to be so unorganized, but I just kept changing my mind about things, and I was all over the place. So try to just get really organized and make a calendar and double, triple, quadruple check your due dates. I didn't get a chance to apply to two of the schools that I wanted to apply to because I mixed up their deadlines, and I don't know how I did that. but I did, and I was just like so overwhelmed with the whole thing that I don't know why I threw out my organizational skills and just decided not to use them. But if you sit down, once you've made your list of schools you're applying to, and you just write down their deadlines, it makes your life so much easier. Next actually comes doing the application. So I tried to pick schools that were primarily on the Common Application, although I did end up applying to UC's and they have their own separate application. But being on the Common App helps because you can do one application for a bunch of schools, and it just makes it a lot simpler. Don't underestimate the importance of staying on top of things and making it easy on yourself. So then you do your applications and you spend lots of time writing essays, and I guess my biggest tip is to try to reuse essays. I know they say not to do that, but I think it's okay to reuse an essay as long as you're tweaking it. I mean, there were a lot of essays that I wrote that I changed like the conclusion, or I changed some middle part to kind of tie it into a conclusion that better fit the prompt that I was being asked to answer, but I was able to keep like whole paragraphs, and that was so helpful because, like I said, you don't have the luxury of having, you know, all the time you had your senior year to apply to colleges. You really have to fit this in along with your school schedule, so try to make it easy on yourself. And then this next piece of advice, I cannot stress enough because I literally had no idea about this until it was almost too late. Are you ready, kids? Once you have finished your essays, you are not done with your application. Coming out of high school, you finished your essay, you sent in your SAT scores, and you were done. And that was it. That is not how it is in college. Your transcripts from both high school and college will not automatically be sent. For transfer students, you need a mid-year report. You also need a transfer student report, which is basically your current institution saying you're on good standing with their school and you haven't done anything really bad. And you have to be in charge of getting all of that done. Most schools have it easily accessible on their website. You just go and you fill out some little form and you check that you need these things, or you go into your advisor or something like that. There are ways to do it, but you have to be proactive about it, and so many of the schools have those forms due the same day as the application, and I had like more than half of my schools due on the same day, and I didn't realize that you needed those forms. And it was due on a Sunday, and I figured out Friday night after business hours, so I couldn't contact my school until Monday morning, which was going to be after the deadline. And I had a panic attack. Like, I cried, like freaked out. It was like really bad. I was literally calling old high school teachers being like, is there any way you can break into school and get my transcripts and like overnight them to these schools? It was a low point. But as it turned out, they have a grace period with it. It's not a huge deal if you don't get them in right away. I still got into schools. It's not the end of the world. However, save yourself the stress. Get that done early. Be really, really, really aware. It's in the tiniest font on the Common App. Literally so small. It's just like, it's tiny. It's little. And so make sure you find that. Make sure you get your transcript sent from both college and high school. You also have to make sure you get your SAT score sent, like always. You need to make sure that you get that transfer mid-year report done, and you need to get that transfer student report done. And it's a lot of work to do initially, but once you have those materials, you just send them to each of the schools, and it's not so hard. There are actually a lot of fees associated with it, so make sure that you remember that, because it's like $15, at least in my school. It was like $15 to send a transcript. SAT scores actually charge you an additional fee because you took them so long ago, which I think is ridiculous. And then there's also sending fees for the mid-year report and the transfer student report, though those are a lot smaller, like maybe $5. But make sure you know that you're going to be spending a lot of money because you have all of that in addition to the actual application fee, which are like $70 to $90. So once you have done all of that and you're all scored away and each little Common App has its green little check mark and you're feeling really good about yourself, double, triple check that every school has its material, and then relax for like 2 seconds and then start checking your email like crazy, because you're gonna start getting confirmations with things like your student ID number or like confirmation number, things that you're gonna need to access your decisions when they come out in the spring. So I did get organized on this part. I made a little Excel sheet where I had the name of the school, any important user information, and then I went through and I listed those like 5 things that I needed to have sent every school, and I waited and checked my portals and made sure that they got all of those, and if they didn't get them in a timely manner, I started calling and saying, do you have this information? Do you need this information? Should I resend this information? It was a whole ordeal, but you have to be that organized because they will not reach out to you, and that's the difference between getting into a school and not sometimes. So make sure you're really on top of that, be proactive, really advocate for yourself, and if there's telling you that they don't have this information and you know you sent it, double check with your school to make sure they send it to the right address, and then make sure that you're like really covering all of your bases so that nothing gets left behind. And if you do forget something, don't freak out. Everybody makes mistakes. They know it's a stressful process. Just explain that you'll get it to them as soon as possible, and usually they're very accommodating. So once you have everything actually in and you know you're actually finished with your applications, sit back, somewhat tensely, relax, if you can, for the next 2 to 3 months. And then this is the next difficult part about the transfer process. Watch your decisions come in anywhere from late April to late July. And watch them all have different deadlines to accept, some of which will be well before you receive your July decisions. So for me, I actually ended up committing to Vanderbilt University before I got into Northwestern. And then I got into Northwestern and had to tell Vanderbilt that I was not going anymore, which I felt really bad about because I knew I had taken up a spot, but I hoped that they would be able to let someone in off of their wait list. But that's just the type of thing you have to make a decision about. And you know, at the time, Vanderbilt was a really great option. Vanderbilt was a great school. I was so excited when I got in. And when I decided to accept that, I had to accept it because they had their deadline before I'd heard back from almost half of my schools. So my advice to you is talk to them, see if they will accommodate a later acceptance deadline. Most of them won't. And in that case, if you have a school that you're happy going to, which should be any of the ones on your list, accept that offer at the latest date possible. And then if you have to turn them down later and let them know you've accepted somewhere else, they understand, they do know that they have deadlines that conflict. So you will lose your deposit, and that sucks because it's like a couple $100, but you just weigh that against how much you want to go to the other schools, and that's kind of a good way to decide. So I got into Northwestern. I ended up having to tell Vanderbilt I wasn't going to go, which was a bummer, but I was so happy that I got into Northwestern. So that's where I'm going to be next year. I don't know, I just slipped that one in there. But yeah, I decided I will tell you where I'm going because you guys are going to figure it out anyway. I think it's going to be pretty easy. I'm going to be in Chicago, which I mentioned, which means I'm going to be going to school near Donnie, which means he can film videos for me. And that's going to be cool because I'm going to have some great new content for you guys. So yeah, get excited because I'm going to have a film crew with me, aka Donnie. And stuff, do you like how I'm so excited that I'm going to be near my boyfriend? Not because I'm going to be near my boyfriend, because I'm going to use him for my YouTube. That's the only part of it. I'm so excited we don't have to do long distance anymore. So yeah, that was my decision-making process. Basically, I just looked at which had the best business or econ program. Vanderbilt is a really good school and it has a really good name. However, its name is not super strong in the econ world, which is what I would be studying there, whereas Northwestern is a top 10 econ program. So that's exciting. I'm so excited to be going to a new school, and I will be updating you guys about the process as it goes along. And last thing before I close out this video, a lot of people had questions about the social aspect, about Alpha Phi, because I am in a sorority, and how does that work, and what's my fam gonna do? My big and little and stuff like that. So yeah, let me address those. I had a really hard time telling my little that I was transferring because I felt like I was being a bad big, and I knew I wasn't going to be there for really important stuff like Big Little Week. But she was super supportive. She's the best. Samira, I love you. You're an angel. She was just like, I just want you to be happy, and if you're happy, I'm happy. So she made it really easy for me. But I am flying back for Big Little Week because I cannot wait to meet the little nugget that we're bringing into the fam. I've already helped her craft. And I fully intend on just like visiting whenever I can, just finding ways to stay in touch, keep connected. I'm gonna for sure go for senior send-off because my big's gonna be a senior next year and she's gonna be graduating, and I like want to make sure that I'm there for those important moments. Also, oh, I just remembered another thing. Wow, I suck. Real quick, because I'm going to be late for work, make sure your credits transfer really well before you commit to a school. That's not always possible to do, but just make sure that you're looking at what their requirements are and make sure that your classes sound like they're going to meet them, because if not, that's really not good, and you don't want to end up at a school where you're going to end up having to take an extra year to 2 years of classes. That's not what anyone wants. That's expensive. It sets you behind in starting work, all of these things. And know that you might have to make some sacrifices. For example, I will not be studying abroad my junior year like I had wanted to. Instead, I will hopefully be studying abroad my senior year, but maybe not, because Northwestern does require that you take 6 quarters of classes on the actual Northwestern campus. though they do have a few select programs that are Northwestern campus abroad. So we'll see about that, but know that you might have to make some sacrifices and just be okay with that. So I think that wraps up this video. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below, or feel free to direct message me. I will always direct message you back. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and like my Facebook page, and check out my blog. My camera died and the angle's different, and I'm sorry, but I really have to go to work, so make sure you check out all of my social media. I just created a new blog. I'm super excited about it. It's gonna be great. Please check it out. I'm going to have way more information and details about the transfer process there, so make sure you go check that out. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because I work really hard on my videos and you never would want to miss one, am I right, ladies? Okay, I think that's about it. I love you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.